I am an American soldier. I'm a warrior and a member of a team.
I serve the people of the United States and live the Army values.
I will always place the mission first.
I will never accept defeat.
I will never accept defeat.
I will never quit.
I will never leave a fallen comrade.
I am disciplined.
I am disciplined. Physically and mentally tough.
Trained and proficient in my warrior tasks and drills.
I always maintain my arms, my equipment, and myself.
I am an expert and I am a professional.
I stand ready to deploy, engage, and destroy the
enemies of the United States of America in close combat.
I am a guardian of freedom and the American way of life.
I am an American soldier.
I am an American soldier.
I am an American soldier.
I am Army Strong.
There's strong, and there's Army Strong. See what it takes at GoArmy.com.
Sometimes writers feel lost, unsure why a passage may not be working. It takes another set of eyes to help us nurture our writing into full maturity. At Black Wolf Editorial Services, we strive to enable writers to develop and grow, offering manuscript critiques and line edits through a mentoring editorial style. We also offer assistance on generating a writer's bio for your websites. Black Wolf Editorial Services, nurturing your writing into maturity. For a full list of services, visit blackwolfeditorial.com.
Hey folks, I want to introduce you to a friend of mine, Dr. Richard Harden. We are on the same mission, which is waking up America. We just have different paths. So stay tuned for some information on how you can keep up with Richard and all his work.
Visit Richard's website at rahardin.com. That's the World Wide Web at rahardin.com. At his website, you can see a summary of the 6 books he has written, where purchases may be made. He also has a link to 18 videos on YouTube and several blogs about Christian beliefs. If you prefer, visit Amazon.com/Kindle and type in Richard Harden to see and purchase his books.
Every day, the men and women of the United States Marine Corps stand ready to defend the American way of life. The few, the proud, the Marines.
The following message contains a special offer for listeners of this station. Are you a man over 40? Are you constantly looking for the nearest bathroom? Do you wake up multiple times a night to use the bathroom? Right now, Perfect Prostate is sending out free bottles of their groundbreaking new formula to listeners of this station. Perfect Prostate Formula was developed by medical doctor Mitchell Fleischer, and its ingredients have been clinically studied to reduce your frequent nighttime bathroom visits and promote healthy urine flow. Right now, preferred customers get their first bottle of Perfect Prostate absolutely free. There's nothing to lose. Perfect Prostate is guaranteed to reduce that constant urge to use the bathroom, especially at night, and promote healthy urine flow. Don't wait. Call now for your free bottle. Just pay shipping and processing. Dial 1-800-675-0251. That's 1-800-675-0251. Supplies are limited. One free bottle per household. Call now. Dial 1-800-675-0251. That's 1-800-675-0251.
KLRN Radio has advertising rates available. We have rates to fit almost any budget. Contact us at advertising@klrnradio.com.
You're listening to the Spark Radio Network, internet radio like you've never heard before. Innovation, creativity, and imagination are all said to begin with a spark. So fasten your seatbelt and take the ride of your life and listen for the spark.
You are listening to KLRN Radio, where liberty and reason still reign.
My name is Jessie. I'm a United States Special Forces widow. This gives me a unique perspective on the world around us. If you're willing to listen, I'll tell you how I see it, and I won't pull any punches. This is my POV, which stands for Point of View.
All right, this is Jessie. How y'all doing tonight? Yes, I missed you all weekend. I know, I'm sorry we missed all weekend together, but whoa, what a weekend! I was running in absolute circles. Yes, I miss you when we're not together, but I was thinking about you guys because I even did some show prep for today over the weekend. So, let's see what's been going on in the world today. Sorry, just rearranging a few things so I can get to my show prep. You know I've always got a stack for you guys, don't I? And as usual, it's not already sorted and collated. There have been a lot of things in the news over the weekend. We have everything from Iran. What's news around here without Iran, North Korea, China, somebody running amok? I don't know what would make the news if all these people behaved, although I'd love it if they did. Alright, on the humorous side of North Korea, I do have a slightly humorous North Korean story. A British tourist captured the total amazement of a North Korean border railway guard after he smoked an e-cigarette for the first time. Del Dinsdale, 34, was traveling from China into the communist country when his bags were searched by a guard. Initially, the official thought the e-cig was a bomb. Yes, as an explosive device. When Mr. Dinsdale told him it was a cigarette, he was baffled and wanted to try it. Mr. Dinsdale said he thought it was an illegal item being taken into his country, but I showed him what it was and he was delighted. Strict rules in the secretive country means tourists are usually forbidden from taking photos of officials, especially in a relaxed setting, but Mr. Dinsdale said the guard at the crossing in the DPRK, so baffled by his vape cigarette, he happily posed for the photograph. He began to smoke it with such delight he'd never seen an electronic cigarette in his life. Then he showed it to all the other border guards and asked if I could give it to him. I explained would not be able to buy the liquids in his country, so he gave it back to me and presented me with some North Korean cigarettes. And Mr. Dinsdale believes it's the only photo of a North Korean border guard smoking an e-cig. Photos were later deleted by another guard who checked Mr. Dinsdale's phone, but the pictures were saved in his recent folder. Yay for iPhone's recently deleted folder. At least I know iPhone has it. I don't know if Android does. I'm not an Android user. Oh yes, your wonderful show host does not use Android. Sorry, an iPhone girl. What can I say? Now, I've got to veer off this lighthearted story for something a little more serious. Friday night, I jumped on with Robinson and Wright. And for those of you who did not hear what I had to say, I gave a shout out to someone on Twitter. His name is Scott Harvath. And for those of you who read Brad Thorne novels, that name sounds very familiar. Well, this particular Scott Harvath spells his first name with 2 T's. And if you're an avid Brad Thor fan like I am, you'll know that the character in the novel only has one T in his name, and I can even tell you why. That's because the character's mother didn't like the way Scott Thomas Harvath, with 3 T's in a row, looked, so she shortened the first name to 1. Yes, that is true, accurate Brad Thorpe trivia. Alright, and for those of you who wonder why I bothered mentioning this guy, Scott Harvath, other than the fact that I'm a huge Brad Thorpe fan, well, Scott Harvath is a retired NYPD sergeant who is battling stage 4 esophageal cancer. Yes, I said stage 4 esophageal cancer. And his Twitter feed, I think someone like that's Twitter feed would be grumpy, dumpy, and annoying. For the most part, his feed actually is very uplifting. I mean, he talks about Christmas shopping at Toys R Us. Talks about his kid's birthday, making his kid breakfast in bed. Talks about all kinds of other things. And his motto is F Cancer. So, and there's even pictures of him online at a birthday party for number 2, his little guy and his brother-in-law and cousin. They have birthdays within 3 days of each other, so it's family tradition is to do a group party. And he is actually making esophageal cancer awareness bracelets. And he shares his battle for surviving cancer freely on Twitter. I encourage you, all of you, to give him a shout out, give him a follow, or maybe even just send him a little message. Alright, moving on. What else is going on in the world? Well, I'm going to thumb through my stack of show prep and give you some of the highlights before we get to all of it. Also kind of gives me a chance to sort it. Like I said, I developed a new trick. Yes, you can teach an old dog new tricks, you just gotta convince him it's the best thing. There is a global counterterrorism forum underway discussing soft targets. Things like shopping malls. We've got, of course, the Dash update and some other Defense Department news. I've got my sad good news story of the day, if you can believe that one. We've got Turkey. Got a piece on Brexit. Actually, a couple of pieces on Brexit. But what can I say? We've got Iran making plans for what they're going to do if the JCPOA or the Iran nuclear deal is trashed by President-elect Trump. Got an update on the Nice attack in France. I've got some random DoD news that I may or may not get to. Of course, I've got the terrorist stuff. I've got a discussion of the Periodic Review Board that I want to bring up. I've got Ash Carter's meeting with Israeli Defense, and Ash Carter was actually in Israel very recently for the arrival of Israel's first F-35. More Daesh, Mosul, a little bit of Syria news. Come on, you know it's coming. I always do some of it. I've also got a story that actually kind of upset me about Muslim Americans. What else? My show prep's turned over halfway through the stack. That's odd. I'm going to say it kind of got shuffled around during... Oh, more Iran news. What would a day be about Iran without Iran? And of course, Daesh and Palmyra. All right. Yes, I said a sad good news story. I know you don't normally think sad and good news go together. But in a way, in a twisted way in this story, they do. But we're going to save that one till the very end. And I am hanging out in the KLRNradio.com chat room, if any of you would care to join me there. So just hop in and type something in the chat room, and I will pop right over, because I'll actually hear it on my computer, even though I'm on air. So, let's get started. I'm going to save Daesh till after commercial break. So we're going to spend a few minutes on some other things, like Iran. This is, of course, a Press TV article, which is, for those regular listeners of my show, you know that is Iranian English TV. Iran's Foreign Minister Mohammad Javad Zarif said it is in the interest of the United States to remain committed to last year's landmark nuclear deal between Iran and the P5+1 group, pointing out that the agreement was a multilateral agreement and endorsed by the United Nations Security Council. But the United States has a less than respectable history in abiding by international law. Reminder, this is from the Iranian News. Zarif made the remarks after the U.S. Senate voted unanimously last week to extend the Iran sanctions for 10 years. Which includes penalties against Iran's banking sector as well as its energy and defense industries. And I believe it was signed by President Obama. Sarah Flounders, co-director of the International Action Center, believes Washington's determination to renew the sanctions indicates a, quote, flagrant disregard even for concluded agreements. Foreign Minister Zarif is absolutely accurate that the U.S. is actually so often in violation of international law. Now, I want to point something out. This woman lives here in the United States. She actually lives in New York. I did a little research on her. And I'd like to see her be able to speak out against the government of Tehran if she lived in Tehran. I don't think she'd get very far or last very long. I'm sorry, I just don't see it happening. Now, along the same vein, a senior Iranian official says Tehran has prepared contingency plans for responding to any manner of violations of its nuclear deal with the world powers. Without a doubt, the people will be happy after they hear of Iran's decisive response, while Iran's enemies will lose hope, said Ali Akbar Bayalati, senior advisor to the leader of the Islamic Revolution, Ayatollah Sayyid al-Khamenei, on international affairs. He went on to stress that Iran will remain true to its commitment to the JCPOA, or the Joint Comprehensive Plan of Action, i.e. the Iran nuclear deal, which was signed between Iran and the 5 permanent members of the UN Security Council, which are, just to refresh everybody, the United States, France, Britain, Russia, China, plus Germany and Vienna in July 2015. If there is even the slightest defect from in the execution of the United States' commitments, Washington will face Tehran's clear and decisive response, said Bayalati. He also went on to condemn the U.S. Senate's recent approval of a bill which extends Washington's anti-Iran sanctions, stressing such a move will not remain unanswered. What are they going to do? Put their soldiers on magic carpets and float them across the ocean? Really? Seriously, they could actually attack some of our soldiers in Iraq. They do, if you were listening to my show on Friday, they do use a lot of proxies. I don't believe I have the clip handy. Oh, I actually do. Let's take a quick listen.
Though Iran establishes its proxies first to execute unconventional warfare and then spread its ideological and political influence, these groups often become essential parts of Iran's frontline deterrent strategy once established. This deterrence exists via 2 layers. First is retaliatory deterrence, the ability to instill fear of significant casualties, destruction of critical infrastructure, or economic destruction to dissuade Tehran's more powerful enemies, such as Israel or the U.S. This draws from what Supreme Leader Khamenei and others have described threat in response to threat doctrines. Proxies also give plausible deniability to help Iran manage escalation.
All right, so Iran sees us renewing the sanctions against them as a threat. So we can only suppose that they're going to initiate their threat for threat doctrine. Now, does that mean they're actually going to do something, or are they just going to wag their finger at us and say, naughty, 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 we don't like it? No clue. I can't read their minds. But you can bet, whatever it is, it's not pretty. Remember that Syria scorecard? You want to pull that out and dust it off for just a minute? Alright, to summarize the scorecard, we have Bashar al-Assad, president of Syria, being propped up by Russia, supported by China and Iran. Well, Iran and Turkey held secret talks. Now remember where Turkey fits in. Turkey is on our side and wants Bashar al-Assad to go. And as far as Russia's concerned, they're frenemies on a good day and enemies on a regular day. So Iran and Turkey held secret talks on peace proposals for Syria. And in 2013, as recently as this year, but the talks broke down amid mutual suspicion. The report on the Iran-Turkey relationship by the International Crisis Group is based on interviews with top officials. It is being published as pro-regime forces, including Iranian-led militias, stormed the last rebel-held districts of Aleppo amid reports of massacres. The report is the latest in a series of accounts of failed diplomacy throughout the near 6-year Syrian conflict, which has cost the lives of up to 500,000 people. The plan envisaged a ceasefire followed by a national unity government and constitutional reform aimed at constraining presidential powers. Most importantly, there would then be presidential and legislative elections under UN supervision. The plan was the subject of several months of shuttle diplomacy between Iranian Foreign Minister Mohammad Javad Zarif and his Turkish counterpart, Ahmet Davutoglu, but it eventually collapsed under the future role of the Syrian President Bashar al-Assad. They agreed on every detail except a clause in the final phase of the plan which called for UN-monitored elections. Turkish leaders wanted Assad barred. Zarif is quoting, "I noted that this should not be a concern in an internationally monitored election, particularly if, as Turkey holds, Assad has a dreadful record in a minority constituency." But Davutoglu refused, and our efforts came to naught. According to the report, titled "Turkey and Iran, Bitter Friends, Bosom Rivals," the Turkish government did not believe that Assad would accept any transition process that would weaken his grip on power, and Ankara still thought his military defeat was inevitable. The Turkish president at the time, Abdullah Gül, told the ICG, "Our government did not pursue an agreement with Iran because it thought that Assad would be toppled in a few months. From Ankara's perspective, Assad's battlefield losses would remove the need to compromise, or at least to improve the deal's terms." So, yeah, guess what? I told you Iran was supporting Assad, at least because Russia is and China is. Iranian officials expressed surprise Turkey had not notified them of the operation. What were they discussing? After the ICG said a second opening for Tehran and Ankara deal should be presented itself after the abortive military coup in Turkey in July this year, when Iran promptly stated support for President Erdogan, creating a temporary thaw in relations and a resumption of talks on Syria. At the same time, the military advances by Kurdish YPG forces in northern Syria have led to simultaneous reconciliation between Ankara and Moscow. Like I said, Ankara and Moscow, capital Turkey, capital Russia, I think you guys can connect the dots here. They're frenemies. They want to appear to have normal diplomatic relations. Truth is, one minute they're hissing at each other, the next minute they're inviting each other over for tea. So, like I said, it's an interesting thing that these two countries had secret talks. Got one more issue I want to cover before we go to break. Now, this news release is old. I'm going to state that I'm only going to read part of it. This press release from the U.S. Department of Defense is dated December 4th. The Department of Defense announced today the transfer of Shawiki Awad Balzuhair from the detention facility at Guantanamo Bay to the government of Cabo Verde. Alright, and it goes on to say, on July 11th, 2016, a periodic review board consisting of representatives from the Department of Defense, Homeland Security, Justice, and State, the Joint Chiefs of Staff, and the Office of the Director of National Intelligence determined continued law of war of detention of Balazar does not remain necessary to protect against a continuing significant threat to the security of the United States. Alright, that's about as much as I needed to read. Remember, it said Periodic Review Board. So, I went to PRS.mil, which is Periodic Review Board something or other .mil. Periodic Review Board is a discretionary administrative interagency process to review whether a continuation of detention of particular individuals held at Guantanamo Bay remains necessary to protect against a continuing significant threat to the security of the United States. This review board process was established by the President's March 7, 2011 Executive Order number 13567 and will be conducted consistent with the Section 1023 of the National Defense Authorization Act for the fiscal year 2012. Now, this information's a little old. So, the review board will consider the threat posed by each detainee under review. In particular, the review board will be tasked with determining whether law of war detention remains necessary to protect against a continuing significant threat to the security of the United States. The review board process is intended to assist the executive branch in making informed decisions as to whether detainees held at Gitmo should remain in law of war detention. Informed decision-making will be aided by providing detainees with an opportunity to participate in the process as appropriate. To this end, detainees will provide with unclassified written summary of the information considered by the review board and will be permitted to respond with statements written by themselves and witnesses. Detainees will also be afforded the opportunity to appear before the review board via video or telephone conference. Detainees may request the presentation of testimony at this hearing by witnesses who are reasonably available and willing to offer relevant and material information regarding whether continued law of war detention is warranted. Detainees' personal representative will receive full access to the information considered in the review board, except in the rare instances where doing so would put the national security at risk. Any private counsel for the detainee possessing an appropriate security clearance will also receive access to the information the review board considers, except in the exceptional circumstances above or where necessary. To blah 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 protect. Full reviews of each detainee, to include the hearings described, will be conducted every 3 years. File reviews will be conducted for any detainee whom the review board has determined that continued detention is necessary every 6 months in between full review and will focus on any new information or change in circumstances. The review board can recommend law of war detention or recommend a detainee's transfer, including establishing the conditions for a transfer. A review committee will conduct a review of the review board's determination. If a member of the review committee seeks the review within 30 days of the review board's decision, or the review board cannot reach a consensus, the review committee is composed of Secretary of State, Secretary of Defense, Attorney General, Secretary of Homeland Security, and the Director of National Intelligence and the Chairman of the Joint Chiefs. Once a review board determination becomes final, the detainee may not appeal. However, with semi-annual files, reviews, and periodic full reviews, the detainees will have continuing opportunity to regularly present to the review board any new and relevant mitigating information. So basically what they're going to do is they're going to sit around and chit-chat and figure out what this guy really thinks in his heart and mind. My, oh my, where did the time go? I am past bottom of the hour. And that means I got to take a commercial break and pay those bills. I will see you on the other side.
In these uncertain economic times, you've got to do whatever you can to save money. One of our biggest expenses can be our cars, especially when unexpected repair bills hit. Not anymore. If you own a vehicle with less than 130,000 miles, is less than 12 years old, has a warranty about to expire, or even no warranty at all, you could stop paying for car repairs. Roadside assistance, towing, and rental coverage are all included. Don't wait for the next repair. Make one free call right now to see if you qualify. If your vehicle is less than 12 years old, has less than 130,000 miles, even if it's out of warranty, paying for car repairs can become a thing of the past. Call us right now and get your car protected before your next repair bill hits. Get protection and no more repair bills. Call 800-696-1030. Again, 800-696-1030. That's 800-696-1030. 800-696-1030.
All writers are prone to becoming so attached to our characters and stories that we struggle to see why a passage may not be working. It takes another set of eyes to help us nurture our writing to full maturity. At Black Wolf Editorial Services, we strive to enable writers to develop and grow, shaping stories into masterpieces that can stand the test of time. Editing services are provided for all genres and all age categories. Services range from the critique of the short story through to line edits on full-length novels. We also offer assistance on generating writers' bios for your websites. We won't abandon you to the masses. We want to celebrate with you in your successes. Black Wolf Editorial Services, nurturing your writing into maturity. For a full list of services and prices, visit us at blackwolfeditorial.com.
I've owned my company for 14 years now, and I can tell you that payroll is a 4-letter word. I hate doing it. It eats up hours I don't have, and it costs me money I could be saving. But my accountant's too expensive, and I'm not sure who to call, but I know I need help.
We're Paychex, and we take all the hassles out of small business payroll. We save you time and money. It's easy. Call, fax, or give us your payroll information securely online, and we take care of the rest. We calculate the correct taxes, manage payments and direct deposits. We even send out your checks. Payroll doesn't need to be a 4-letter word anymore. We're so sure that we can save you time and money that we'll give you a month's payroll free. Just for calling 877-757-2782. Get 1 month's payroll for free. Call Paychex right now. 877-757-2782. That's 877-757-2782.
KLRN Radio has advertising rates available. We have rates to fit almost any budget. Contact us at advertising@klrnradio.com.
All right, thank you for hanging in there with me over that commercial break. Sorry I let it run just a little bit long. Lost track of time, prepping some audio for this next segment. All right, let me get it queued up for you. And this is from today's White House press briefing.
Right it is. All right, a couple...
Oh, that's the State Department. Yeah, I've got them both queued up. What can I say? I just got to get to the White House, not the State Department. No, you don't have to wait for me to drive across town.
I hope you all had a good weekend. I do not have any comments at the start, so we can go straight to questions. Josh, would you like to start?
Sure, thanks, Josh. Why don't we start with Aleppo? Okay. Does the U.S. government still think it's possible to prevent Aleppo from falling to the Syrian government, or is it possible to concede at this point that it's a lost cause?
Josh, the United States government continues to be deeply concerned about the situation in Aleppo, and the violence there is only increasing. The risk facing innocent civilians has been grave for some time. It continues to worsen. And despite our best diplomatic efforts to reduce the violence and increase the flow of humanitarian assistance, the Assad government, backed by the Russians, continues to try to bomb innocent civilians into submission. And it's a terrible situation that does not appear to be getting better.
And the U.S. is saying that Russia has turned down a U.S. offer for a ceasefire. Mm-hmm. What were the terms of that ceasefire? And given that it seems that Russia and its Syrian partners are on the verge of winning, with 98% control of the area in Aleppo, according to the Syrian forces, why would Russia agree to our terms at this point then?
Well, again, I can't speak to the intricacies of the conversations that were taking place between Secretary Kerry and some of our top diplomats and their Russian counterparts. There are other countries that were involved in these conversations as well. I can't speak to the intricacies of the proposed arrangement, but I can certainly tell you what the goals were. The goal was to try to end the bombing, and the few innocent civilians that remain, try to get them out of harm's way, and try to allow the flow of humanitarian assistance to these communities that have been shut off from the outside world for a long time. So, those were the goals all along, and in the months and years that we've been negotiating to try to find a.
All right, that's enough of that. Basically, if you've been following the news, you're a regular listener to this show, you know that Syria has almost retaken Aleppo. Now, while the stranglehold on Aleppo has been loosening, the security of Palmyra gone. Got a Press TV article for you. Reminder that it is Iranian news. Hezbollah, aka Iranian proxy, Hezbollah resistance fighters have been assisting government forces in Syria in the battle against terrorists. Alright, first of all, the Syrian government calls the people in Aleppo fighting for freedom terrorists. The Hezbollah Secretary General also commented on the presidency of Michael Aoun in Lebanon. Relations between Hezbollah and the administration of newly elected President Nasrallah will be based on mutual respect. He rejected rumors that the leader of the Lebanese resistance movement also stated that rejected rumors that the two sides would not get along well due to differences. But back to the top of the article. Earlier in the day, Russia and Syrian army ground forces and allies had liberated 52 blocks in the eastern parts of the northwestern city from the grip of foreign-backed militants, and were in control of 93% of the city. Washington and some of its western allies have supported Takfiri terrorist groups wreaking havoc in the region over the past few years. Nasrallah said, adding that the cooperation and unity among nations are needed in the face of Takfiri threats in the region. Takfiri threats is the only... Safeguarding the region as well as the Islamic civilization against Takfiri threats is the only way we have, Nasrallah said. He is tasked Hassan Nasrallah, Hezbollah Secretary General, has tasked Prime Minister-designate Saad Hariri, a Western-backed Sunni politician, with setting up a government. Lebanon is expected to hold parliamentary elections in May 2017, the first legislative vote in that country in 8 years. Now, all of Syria isn't Aleppo. And here's a little article I found just because I wanted to bring you something to contrast. You can tell the coastal city of Tartus is on the side of the Syrian government because everything here is intact. Little waves lap at rocks on a wide, quiet seafront dotted with cafes. Boats ferry people back and forth to a nearby island. Parks with manicus hibiscus shrubs are covered in pale pink blossoms, and there are busy markets. This is in vivid contrast to places where protest against Assad morphed into an armed uprising and in the subsequent fighting. Great swaths of ancient cities were destroyed. Hundreds of thousands of people were killed. Many were civilians in opposition-held areas targeted by the forces of President Bashar al-Assad and his allies in brutal tactics which have been widely condemned by Western powers. But just because civilians in Tartus go about their daily lives in safety does not mean they are unaffected by the war. Syrians staunchly loyal to Assad have also paid a heavy price. There is a print shop in Tartus where this guy prints posters of the fallen. And the city is said to be, for the nickname again, I had it and I lost it. Mother of Martyrs. The print shop run by Laman Jahidid used to make posters for Cafe, but now prints mostly signs commemorating men who have died fighting for Assad. At the beginning of the crisis, he said they used to publish between 10 and 17 posters a day. So, like I said, there's a lot going on, even in cities that are not directly affected. Syrian regime close to retaking Aleppo, but loses Palmyra in the process. Even with total control of Aleppo, the Syrian military sent bombs thundering down on the rebels still holding out. Thousands of civilians have been caught in the tense fighting as the war came closer, with consistent shelling this past week. Aleppo's old historic city has now been reclaimed by the Syrian army. Among the rubble, there are some insights into how the war was fought. The rebels were outgunned and outnumbered, but more able to keep up the fight with barricades, propaganda, and improvised weapons. Before they started using cannons, they used catapults, a Syrian soldier said, demonstrating a makeshift slingshot. The ancient city, destruction of Palmyra by Daesh. The battle for Aleppo has stretched Syrian forces so thin that the regime lost track of Palmyra. The ancient city the government vowed they would never lose again is now back under Daesh control. Earlier this year, with much fanfare, the Syrian and Russian forces had declared Daesh would never come back. This lasted just 9 months. Because guess what? Knock knock. Daesh calling. I just find it amazing when things can just turn on a dime. Despite the ongoing air raids, Daesh retook all of Palmyra after the Syrian army withdrew south of the city. Daesh's own media wing, Amaq News Agency, also reported that the jihadist group forces had regained full control of the city. Daesh had first gained control of Palmyra, a UNESCO World Heritage Site, in May 2015. Syrian government forces recaptured it in March, but this past weekend, Daesh had made new inroads, taking neighborhoods and key sites as Syrian troops focused on ground operations in the city of Aleppo. All I have to say is there's a lot going on in Syria. I do not have an explicit Mosul update. I have a couple of things I want to bring up. And then we are moving on. Air Force F-16 Fighting Falcons from Vermont Air National Guard are due to join Operation Inherent Resolve in the fight against Daesh. Accompanying the aircraft were 300 Air National Guard airmen deployed from the 158th Fighter Wing, who will comprise the 134th Expeditionary Fighter Squadron. Real short summary: Vermont Air National Guard soldiers will miss Christmas with their families in order to protect and defend this country. So, the capability of these total force airmen provide the use of precision airstrikes. For the use of precision airstrikes that will aid in denying Daesh safe haven and provide ground forces in Iraq and Syria opportunity to conduct localized counterattacks. So, thank you to the men and women of the Vermont Air National Guard. And the other story I wanted to comment on. Oh, Secretary of State Ash Carter was in Israel as the country received its first F-35s. For that, I will play you the audio clip on the F-35 since I already started, and we will double back to Mosul.
This evening, we're celebrating the remarkable progress of the U.S.-Israel defense relationship, and also of an Air Force that began by flying leftover World War II planes and is now flying the most advanced aircraft in history. These F-35 stealth fighters are the first of 50 aircraft that will help build the future of the Israeli Air Force. And that's thanks to an historic memorandum of understanding we signed this year, in which the U.S. pledged an unprecedented $38 billion in security assistance over the next decade. And as of today, Israel is our first and only friend in the region that's flying F-35. And it's my honor to be here marking the delivery of these planes, the Adir, to America's closest friend and ally in the region.
All right, so the F-35 in Israel is being called the Adir, and Carter himself was there for the handover of the first F-35. Now, why is this significant? Even as President-elect Trump is going, wait a minute. This plane's expensive. Well, I decided to let this second audio clip explain a little bit about the F-35's capabilities. And as it's said by the Defense Secretary himself, I doubt there's anything OPSEC-y in here. It hasn't been released 5 times over.
Now, I'm told that in Hebrew, Adir means the mighty one, which is an apt name for an aircraft that represents the full force of military might. From its stealth technology to its fighter capabilities, the F-35 will allow pilots to evade detection and fly at supersonic speeds while conducting air defense, intelligence, surveillance, and reconnaissance, and ground attack missions. It also features advanced sensors and data collection capabilities that allow it to share data with other aircraft.
All right, that sounds like a pretty significant jump forward in technology. However, I will say I've also heard from some pilot friends of mine that none of them want to get involved with the F-35s. They are happy with the current planes they're flying. They don't want a plane that has even rumored to have such a troubled past. Because if you've been following the F-35 project, you know it has failed tests. It has done all kinds of things. Alright. I am missing my Mosul story. 200,000 Daesh militants killed or injured in Mosul offensive. U.S. Army Lieutenant General Stephen Townsend said at least 2,000 Daesh militants have been killed or badly injured since the offensive to recapture Mosul began. Townsend, commanding general of the anti-Daesh Combined Jordan Task Force Operation Inherent Resolve Coalition, on Sunday said there's still between 3,000 and 5,000 Daesh militants in Mosul. At the start of the campaign, we estimated somewhere between the low end 3,500 and the high end about 6,000. By the calculations, we think we have killed or badly wounded over 2,000. So if you do the math, there's still 3,000 to 5,000 militants remaining in Mosul. I don't think it suggests anything about a stalemate. This is a major urban area. Any army on the planet, to include the United States, would be challenged by this fight. The Iraqi army has come back from near defeat 2 years ago, and now they're attacking this major city. And Mosul is considered one of the most important battles in the fight against Daesh. In Iraq, this is considered the militant Islamist group last major stronghold in the country. And President Barack Obama and Iraqi officials previously said they expect Mosul to be retaken by the Iraqi government before the end of the year. Alright, real short thing on the Nice attack. French police have detained and questioned 10 suspects. Remember the Nice attack was the one where the truck on Bastille Day, where a truck drove into a crowd and killed 86 people and wounded hundreds more? That was July 14th, and the attacker was shot dead, and the attacker was claimed by Daesh. Brexit. It's going to take longer than they first thought, a minimum of 2 to 4 years. Now, I know a lot of the people that voted for Brexit in the UK were going out and out now. Guess what, guys? If you want to leave in an orderly manner, it's going to take time. Alright, I was going through doing my usual show prep, thumbing through stories, and I found one that absolutely made me sick. And there's nothing graphic in it. At least not on the surface. Muslim American women are rethinking wearing the hijab. Melissa Grayjack was subjected to all kinds of taunts for wearing the hijab, but an incident at Discovery Lake in San Marcos, California. Yes, California. Home of liberals, I believe. Sealed the deal. Her 1-year-old son was playing with another boy when an irate father saw her and whisked his son away, telling Grayjack, "Go back where you came from." Man then scooped up a handful of wood chips and threw them at Grayjack's son. At that moment, Grayjack thought enough was enough. She decided to take off her head covering. She'd been on the fence regarding the hijab, but the incident made it clear that her religious choice could be putting her son at risk. Last week, Ilhan Omar, newly elected Minneapolis state representative, was leaving the White House where she discussed policy initiatives when a cab driver threatened to yank her hijab while shouting expletives and calling her Daesh. A day earlier, a man pushed a New York City transit worker down a staircase at Grand Central Terminal yelling, "You're a terrorist. Go back to your own home." Or to your own country, excuse me. Alright. We live in the United States. Rant time, if you didn't catch it already. We live in the United States of America. One of the freedoms we have in this country that is protected by the Constitution of the United States of America is freedom of religion. And some of you say, well, you're Jewish. How can you put up with this? I've got a real simple thing. You put down their religion, you put down my religion, and you put down Christianity. Because believe it or not, if you go back and actually read the Old Testament of your Christian Bible, all three religions have the same root. Now they do split very early, but guess what? Well, 2 of them split early. The other 2 split much later in the story, but guess what? My opinion on this. If you are peacefully practicing the Muslim religion, I support you. I stand by you. Now, if you are wanting to kill me because I am Jewish and you are Muslim, we have a serious problem. And remember, I'm a Second Amendment person and a concealed carry permit holder. You'll find out what kind of problem I am. Alright, I'm going to do my sad good news story of the day. Aaron Schmidt-Matson looks every bit like Santa Claus. His 6-foot frame carries 310 pounds, leaving just enough of a lap for the kids to sit on, with a gentle, cringly chuckle right out of central casting. No fake facial fuzz for this guy. Schmidt-Matson's snowy beard is the real thing, albeit regularly bleached to maintain its whiteness. His shag is so spectacular it won first place in the natural full beard styled mustache division of a 2016 national contest sponsored by the Just for Men Hair Products Company. He's professionally trained, custom tailored, and red, and he was born on St. Nicholas Day. So, anyway, here's what happened. I'd just gotten home from work, and he's a mechanical engineer as his day job. The telephone rang. It was a nurse I knew who works at the hospital. She said there was a very sick 5-year-old boy who wanted to see Santa Claus. Schmidt-Matson he said, okay, let me just change to my outfit. She said, there isn't time for that. Your Santa suspenders are good enough. Come right now. Schmidt-Matson drove to the hospital in 15 minutes. He met the child's mother and several family members. She'd bought a toy from the TV show Paw Patrol and wanted me to give it to him. He said in a voice growing husky that sized up the situation, told everyone, if you think you're going to lose it, please leave the room. If I see you crying, I'll break down and I can't do my job. Nobody went into the room with him. They watched, sobbing from a hallway window in the intensive care unit. When I was in there, he was laying there so weak it looked like he was ready to fall asleep. I just sat down in bed and asked, say, what's this I hear about you're going to miss Christmas? There's no way you can miss Christmas. Why, you're my #1 elf. He looked up and said, I am? And he said, sure you are. He gave him the present. He was so weak he could barely open the wrapping paper. When he saw what was inside, he flashed a big smile and laid his head back down. They say I'm going to die, he told me. How can I tell when I get to where I'm going? I said, can you do me a favor? He said, sure. When you get there, tell them you're Santa's #1 elf and I'll know they'll let you in. He said they will. I said, sure. He kind of sat up and gave me a big hug and asked just one more question. Santa, can you help me? I wrapped my arms around him before I could say anything. The boy died right there. I let him stay, just kept hugging him and holding on to him. Everyone outside the room realized what happened. His mother ran in. She was screaming, no, no, not yet. I handed her son back and left as fast as I could. This Santa spent 4 years in the Army with the 75th Rangers, and he'd seen his share of stuff, but he ran by the nurse's station bawling his head off. I know doctors and nurses see things like this every day, but I don't know how they can take it. In despair, Schmidt-Matson was ready to hang up his Santa suit, but he mustered his strength to work one more show. When he saw all the children laughing and smiling, it brought me back into the fold. It made me realize realize the role I have to play for them and for me. So thank you very much to Schmidt-Matson. Santa Claus to all. And on that note, folks, I'm out of here and I'm already over, so there's no music tonight. Have a great one.